This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, all things Cleveland sports, with your host, John Suchan. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. Yes, as you can see, I'm down in the corner, and there is beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, the greatest city of them all in our background there. Let me find my handy-dandy Fanatical Elves classical music that I so much love. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And you're listening to this podcast, potentially on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you can hear podcasting, we're there. We are the Fanatical Elves Network. Type in Fanatical Elves, ELFZ, or just type in Cleveland Browns Podcast, and you'll see that we are right there for you to listen to all of our great programming. Have this Johnny Cleveland show. We have our Fanatical Elves show on Thursday nights, Stirring the Pot with Lou Marconi and myself on Monday nights coming up tomorrow. What else? We got Breezy Browns Talk with Sherry. We have Going Nuclear with Ethan Greenberg. Steve Gill with his Dog Pound South show. Dog Food Radio with Jarrell. Sam, the man down there in Texas. Sam has his Browns breakdowns. Can't forget about Rod Bloom with his Browns Blitz. All of us contribute on a weekly basis. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to us. Spread the love, spread the word of us, the Cleveland Browns podcasting network here. Or we're not the Cleveland Browns network, but we are a great place to catch all Cleveland Browns information, opinions. And yeah, we got a lot of opinions. I have a lot of opinions. And my opinions don't always sync with some of the other guys in the show, or their shows. If you can see there on the bottom head of the screen there, Johnny Cleveland Podcast, Browns playing chess, league playing football. I have oftentimes talked about this, and this is an ongoing topic. It's not my only complaint with the Brownies, but it's something that a lot of Browns fans talk about and recognize. And while there is a good chunk of Browns fans who dismiss this and say this is just hogwash. I was catching some things on the X, not TikTok. TikTok is gone, but it might be back. It was off the other day, but now that Trump's taking office tomorrow, January 20th, which is also Martin Luther King Day. Interesting. They're sharing the moment together. The commentaries of different people of how Browns players, and I've seen this a few times now, where, players like Kareem Hunt, I've talked about Kareem Hunt, and obviously I think he was a great player for the Cleveland Browns, and things did not work out when he was here in Cleveland. Down the stretch, he was here for 5 seasons. We brought him in, gave him an opportunity after he had some issues in Kansas City. Did some really great things when he ran alongside Nick Chubb, made a mark here when he was a Cleveland Brown, and we are all very proud of what he did and excited that he was part of this team. He moved on. The Browns did not take the opportunity to bring him back, and so now we see that the Kansas City Chiefs, who he plays for now, he's excelled when he started there, and he did some great things yesterday in the divisional playoff game, scored a touchdown, had some big runs late, looked like the old Kareem Hunt. And there are people out there that will commentate. And I've said things like, congratulations to Kareem. And when they do so, they'll say, well, this doesn't give me a lot of hope. We get rid of players like Joe Flacco and Kareem Hunt. What's to say that the Browns are going to be successful in whatever they do when they come to picking free agents and upcoming draft picks in April? And it's an interesting time because there are a lot of Browns fans who really do not care for that opinion and think that Browns fans, and I guess that's where I get really it's really interesting because it's very easy to dismiss these other people that are trying to say these things, and you'll say, well, that's outrageous, that's crazy, that's pathetic. But why are they any less of a Browns fan? And then there's just the debate of, well, are you a true Browns fan? Or what is a Browns fan? Or what is a fan? And fans can be of all shapes and sizes, I guess. And that's why, we disagree on a lot of things. People here on our, like I said, our programming, people around the globe who are Browns fans. And it's a hard time because right now this team has really gone off the deep end. They were so bad this year. But even before they were bad, that we've had these conversations about Stefanski and about Andrew Berry and about the Haslams and about the decisions that they've made, about Deshaun Watson, the most horrific trade of all time. And some will say, well, we didn't know that up front. And, and Baker Mayfield's shoulder was a messed up issue and he wasn't what he is now. And he's a different kind of player. He's matured. Right. That's all great. But it's not also unexcusable, or the way that when people bring up these things about Baker Mayfield and Kareem Hunt and Joe Flacco, why, we can still praise him and we can still say, well, God, I wish we had these guys back. And there's no harm in doing that. And I know some of you might say, well, that's, you're going back in time. You shouldn't do that. You got to push forward. Okay, we're going to push forward. But then this gets to the problems with what the Browns are dealing with right now. And there will be an enormous amount of pressure on Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and the Haslams. Obviously, the Haslams are the owners of the team. They have all the money. If Stefanski and Berry come up empty and don't succeed in this offseason with their latest moves and the draft coming up, they cannot be here any longer. You look at a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've had Mike Tomlin as their head coach for many years, almost 20 years now. And the natives are getting restless in Pittsburgh. They've made it to the playoffs, and that's better than the Browns have, but they've gotten to this point where they can't succeed as a playoff team. Which is better? I don't know. As a Browns, I guess personally, being a Browns fan is torture, right? We all know it's torture. We were born into this. You were raised to cheer on this team, and that loyalty and love for this team, regardless of how awful they are, is so special and so I wouldn't say it's unique, because there's a lot of other fan bases across the globe, rain or shine, they're going to be supporting. But to be a true Browns fan, I saw the last time the Browns were in an AFC championship game was 35 years ago or 36 years ago. I mean, it's outrageous. I wore my Browns. You can see my Browns gear. Got my Cleveland ball cap on here, and went up. Had some lunch with some friends earlier today, and they're like, "Oh, you're still wearing your Browns gear, supporting that that god awful team." That's right, it is a god awful team, and we just laugh about it because that's all you can do. The Browns have a lot of decisions to make in this offseason, and I just don't. I don't know. I don't trust them like some of my other friends and colleagues and other Browns fans. I do think the Browns oftentimes have been playing chess while the rest of the league is playing football. And I these decisions that they've made most of them have gone awry. There hasn't been a great deal of success. And while people will say, well, the Browns have made it to the playoffs under Stefanski, yes, they did make it to the playoffs twice. That's true. But how much further can we go? I've mentioned this parallel with the Cavaliers team. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. J.B. Bickerstaff for the Cavs was a decent coach, but he could only take this team so far. And what the Cavs are doing right now is because of who those players are, and they have a coach now in Kenny Atkinson who truly understands how to work with that group and get the best of them. And that's why he can take this Cavaliers team all the way to an NBA championship. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are never going to take the Cleveland Browns to a Super Bowl. And those of you who are wanting to say, well, you don't know that. No, I do know that. And I think a lot of Browns fans know that. And that's why it's frustrating that we've kind of just here stuck playing chess. And while people say, well, they just have to do this or they just have to do that. And, look, you have a player like Jayden Daniels of Washington Commanders, right? Here's a kid who, and it shows how, and it's true that, a quarterback play is a huge difference in the NFL. And the Commanders struck gold with Jayden Daniels. The kid is special. Now, the Browns have an opportunity to look at this draft, and the two guys at the top of the list of these quarterbacks are Cam Ward from Miami and Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' oldest son. Both players are going to be, they have had outstanding college careers as football players, as quarterbacks. Can they take it to the next level? I think most people that analyze these two have said, yes, they can. But then there's this debate. Well, are they good enough to go 1 and 2? Or should they be going, after pick 6 or pick 10? They're not like the best, like instead athlete, like their cornerback, wide receiver, Travis Hunter out of Colorado, might even be a better athlete. But the Browns need a quarterback, folks. You and I both know this. The Watson ordeal will be soon over, or it is over. Now we know that Watson's not going to play. I believe that Watson's career is done. He will never play again in the NFL. What the Browns do right now do they take a quarterback? Do they not? A lot of you think that they're going to trade down at that number 2 pick and just act like they're going to take a quarterback, but there's no way they're going to take a quarterback. But a lot of you don't think that either Cam Ward or Sanders are that good to be a franchise quarterback. I disagree. I guess I would just say this about Sanders, and that's who I think the Browns could take at number 2, is that he's Deion Sanders' son. And I know living in the spotlight, under the spotlight of your parent, like you think about LeBron and LeBron James and his son who's playing football. No, they're not the same athlete. And Deion Sanders was a special athlete back in the day. Those of you who had a chance to watch him play on both sides of the ball, well, primarily defense, know that. Or he also played baseball. Deion did baseball and football. So I think Shedeur Sanders could really be a great player. I think that if the Browns drafted him at quarterback, he's tall, he's got some size to him. I think that he's endured a lot of pressures and a lot of strain from being under the spotlight of his father, Deion. Now, the question then becomes, well, Deion wouldn't let him come to the Browns. There's a lot of that circulating, that Deion wouldn't let Sanders go to certain teams like the Browns. It's speculation at this time. And even if he has said it, what would happen if the Browns did decide to select him? All right, we're going to pause. We're going to continue talking about this draft stuff. I'm going to give you a sneak peek at my mock draft, my early thoughts on that. We also have some stadium chatter going on. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast. We'll be right back. Maybe. Hold on. We'll be right back. Yes, we are back here on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Thank you for joining us. Follow us on Apple, download us on Spotify, watch us on YouTube, the X. No, we aren't on a TikTok. TikTok's banned, but I think it's coming back, like we said. Gosh, lots of things going on in the world of sports. But just to finish up this stuff about the Brownies, the drafts, lots of things that could happen. I certainly hope that I think that the Browns, with the number 2 pick, need to take the best player on the board at number 2. Now, I think that should be Sanders. I think the quarterback out of Colorado, I think Ward will go, if they trade out or Tennessee trades out at number 1, Ward will go number 1. Sanders will go number 2 to the Browns. I don't want the Browns to trade out. That's just my personal thing here. I think that they should stick with number 2, and I think they should stick with number 33. They got the 33rd pick. I think that's like the first pick coming out of into the round 2. I certainly think that the Browns should take that pick too. I'll give you a little sneak peek. Again, I said Sanders might go one. Let me pull this up here. I was going to look real quick here. At pick number 2, I really like this Jahaid Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. I took him at number 33. Tall, lanky linebacker, 6'3", good speed, great tackler. Did some really good things at Alabama, and the Browns need to upgrade their linebacking crew, continue to get better. We don't know what's going to happen with JOK. We got to continue to be quick, fast, and this kid Campbell is one of those players. I also like the Browns considering the Henderson kid, the running back out of Ohio State, Travion Henderson. I think that would be a good pick. The Browns needing to bolster their run game, and I think a player like Henderson could do that. So those are a few players that I see the Browns trying to target. The Browns have been going after some Ohio State players over the last couple of drafts, and I think that could be something we can look forward to. The draft is April 20. It starts April 24th for the first round, and then I think second and third round are that Friday, the 25th of April. So stay tuned to that. All right. Now let's say the Browns don't go and they don't draft Sanders. Well, then, we're going to find out here pretty quick, even before the draft in April, what the Browns are thinking when it comes to like the quarterback play, because you've got multiple free agents available potentially. Sam Darnold, who blew it up and just disastrous there in Minnesota, could be available. Zach Wilson, there's a young kid from that used to be for the New York Jets, who I don't like that kid, so let's stay away from him. But then there's another player like the elder Kirk Cousins, who is currently with the Atlanta Falcons, but he's in a position to kind of force a release with the Falcons if the Falcons continue to go with Michael Penix. And if that happens, he could ask out of his contract to be released by the Atlanta Falcons later this offseason, where the Browns could then swoop in and take him if he would agree to that. Now, the thing is that he has a history of playing quarterback under the guidance of Kevin Stefanski, who, again, the Browns, Stefanski and Barry, need to make some logical moves and stop being cute, is what I'm trying to get at. Stop being cute. Stop trying to play chess and not football. And maybe it's because of their backgrounds and their Harvard educations and their East Coast sort of mentality, and maybe that's where some of this stems from, because quite honestly, it was really, really bad. Now, there were a lot of reasons for that this season. Injuries, obviously, people will always point to that, but this team has got to be better, and they have got to make better decisions and better players. I think Kirk Cousins, if the Browns decided they're going to draft Kirk Cousins, obviously then that tells me, or if they not draft, if they take him, they get him in a release. And I don't know how long they'd have to wait. The free agency window opens, March? So if they do decide to take him, obviously that tells us that, somebody like Shadir Sanders isn't going to be drafted by the Browns. Now, the Browns could then look a little bit further down the line, like a player, and I know Lou Marconi brought this up in his latest article, Will Howard, out of Ohio State, who used to play for Kansas City. Big kid, tall kid, kind of looks the role of an AFC North quarterback. I like that idea. Got stronger this year. I was impressed with how the things that he's done at Ohio State. I had watched him play at Kansas State for 4 years, and he did some good things at Kansas State, but he didn't blow anybody away. My friends from Kansas would often say at the beginning of this season, good luck with Will Howard. He didn't do anything overwhelmingly special, but he's done some really good things here in Ohio State. It helps to have a lot of talent around him, like Jeremiah Smith, who's going to have a hell of a game, I think, tomorrow night against Notre Dame, by the way. That game, by the way, we might be doing a pregame to that championship game, so stay tuned for that. I know Lou and I are going to come on at noon tomorrow for our Stirring the Pot show, so tune into that tomorrow at noon. And we might do it then maybe a pregame up to the big Ohio State Notre Dame game. But all right. So we see what the Browns do with Kirk Cousins. I think that would be great. I love Kirk Cousins. I think the kid's great. He grew up in Michigan, outside Holland, Michigan, which I'm familiar with. I went to a college up there called Hope College, and Kirk grew up in that area. So he's a good guy, good family man. Maybe you've seen some information about him in the past, some stories on him. So wonderful family guy. All right. The only other thing I was going to bring up with the Brownies before we move up over to a few other topics is the stadium. The city of Cleveland is being a knucklehead. They are trying to do whatever they can to prevent the Brownies from making this move to Brook Park. They're going to do it. It's all thing just because they're the Browns and they're the city of Cleveland. The city of Cleveland has had decades. I'm talking, and guys, you know this. If you're an old Browns fan, or if you're a Cleveland fan, going back, no, I've been going back to the mid 70s here, okay, and 80s. You look at downtown Cleveland. The city of Cleveland has had opportunity after opportunity to expand and do different things. They've come up with ideas and plans in the past that have all gone by the wayside. And there's this stadium now on the lakefront. Yeah, they have this nice science center, and there's a few other things along there, but it's never been upscaled and whatnot. And now the Haslams have decided, and they're putting forth most of the money, which a lot of people don't like to talk about. Some of you who are against the dome being built outside of the city of Cleveland, they're going to go down the road about 10 miles to Brook Park, are complaining because they think that the Haslams are trying to swindle us and have the taxpayers pay all the money, and that's just not the case. They're coming up with over half of the monies. I think it's $2.4 billion, and there's another $1 billion in other stuff that's going to be built around the stadium. And the Haslams have already agreed they're going to pay for at least half, probably 2/3. Who knows what? They'll figure it out. They're billionaires. We're not. So let them do that thinking. But in the meantime, the city is just trying to do everything they can. This whole Modell rule thing has just been silly. The Modell rule that they put into play was basically to prevent a team like the Browns from moving out of state, like the Baltimore, Maryland, and become the Baltimore Ratbirds. A few years back, they were trying to move the Columbus Crew down here where I live out to Austin, Texas. And they used that rule, the Modell rule, to keep them here in Columbus. And by the way, the Haslams were the group that came in, swooped in, and saved the Columbus Crew. Yes, the Haslams are rich and famous and have billions of dollars, but they're not dirty. And if you feel that way, I'm sorry. I just, they've done a lot to help and support the Cleveland community. And the city is just continuing to do this whole spiel again, and our Modell took, the team took to Baltimore. There's a lot of dispute still about that and how that all went down. The city wasn't really cooperating, and I agree with some of that assessment. And I know some of you who support Modell will talk about this, and I get where you're coming from with this opinion, because back in the day there was a lot of Modell had done a lot of stuff for the city and things like that. But he also got rid of Paul Brown. He got rid of Jim Brown. So there's just a lot. But the city never, they've always been at a distance and not trying to be cooperative. And I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Haslams either, but at least the Haslams are presenting something that is new and something that will be state of the art and something that will strengthen, I believe, the Northeastern Ohio community. I mean, those of you who think that downtown Cleveland is just going to go to hell in a handbasket, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, there's still things in downtown Cleveland. There are Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and Jacobs Field, Progressive Field, or whatever you want to call it now. They're still right down there. The downtown region can still thrive, and they've done a lot of nice upgrades. But the idea of the Browns going to Brook Park should not blow everybody away and make you, I think that there's a time and a place, and the time has come for Cleveland to go down to Brook Park and build this wonderful new arena stadium and stop fighting it, because it's just getting ugly. Cleveland, and you're not winning a lot of fans over, even though you think you might be. All right. Cavaliers, 35 wins, 6 losses. Yeah, they took a loss to the Thunder the other night, and everyone was talking about how dreadful that was. They lost by 20. They were down by 42 at one point. Holy moly. I did not like how Kenny Atkinson's used his bench at one point early in that game. He went to his bench and stuck with, I think, Matt Strus and George Niang for too long. And I know Niang had a better game last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I get that, and he's done some really good things defensively sometimes. He actually was pointed out by Atkinson yesterday after the game for his defense, but I thought that in the previous game against Oklahoma City, they should have done a few other things where Atkinson could have switched some things up. But, that's what happens in the game of basketball. It can go from really good to really bad really quick if you get on one of those runs. And I think they went on like a 25-0 run or something crazy like that. And it was hard to stop. And, Donovan Mitchell has had a few subpar games. He came back, I think last night, scored 36. So, it's a long season. We're at the halfway point now. The Cavs are 35-6. So that's quite an accomplishment. 35-6. You think about that. If you take that in the second half of the season, that's 70-12. 70 wins, 12 losses. Wowzers. Let's say they even lose 10 more. That's 60 win season. Tremendous if they could get to 60 wins. I think the Cavaliers, until they beat Boston in the East, and I know Boston's a few games back, but they talk about it, and I tend to agree. Boston has the veterans, they have the guys that they've been there, done that, and I think it's one of those situations where the Cavs are going to have to beat Boston, and it's as much of a mental thing to beat Boston as anything. I don't think Boston's that great of a team. I don't think that the guys there for Boston. I think Tatum and they're good players, but Brown is good. Jaylen Brown, I think it said his name, really good player. But I think you can get under the skin of the Boston Celtics players like Tatum, and I think the Cavs can do that, and I think they have every opportunity to do that. Now, if they don't beat them this year, but let's say they get to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose to them, I don't think that you should. And I'll hope it takes time. Basketball it's not all the time. You can't just turn it on. Basketball is one of those. It's a longer, grind out kind of season. It's hard to repeat. What the Golden State Warriors did way back when 10 years ago was phenomenal. And for the Cavs to get that one championship, considering that they were down 3-1, was really tremendous as well. So see what happens next with the Cavaliers, but they have such a good team. And I hope they don't make some long trade. A lot of you might complain, you still can talk about the Cavs needing some sort of long wing and everything else. And I've already told you what I think about that. Dean Wade is the guy. Dean Wade is a great player. And those of you who don't understand that yet, you don't pay attention to Cleveland Cavaliers basketball enough. Without Dean Wade on that team, I'm telling you right now, they would have lost another 5 games. I guarantee it. He has done so much, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And some of you will say, oh, I saw him get burned here and there. Rarely does he get burned. And if he does, there's probably other reasons for that you don't understand because you don't pay attention to the game of basketball. I do. I understand the game of basketball probably better than most. And I've watched Dean Wade play since he was a kid. Dean Wade is a special player. There's some players that you need to have on floors, and he doesn't always score in buckets. He doesn't do the things, but like having a player like him on the field, on the floor, having a player like Ty Jerome step in and do some amazing things. This kid, he can turn on the offensive and juices, and some of the things that he does, like just to get his team going again, tremendous. And you can't say enough about the core 4. Again, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, there's this discussion, well, who's more important? I don't know. You need them both right now. And the thing is that this team likes to play with one another. There's not a lot of animosity. And, it's a long season. So there's little, arguments and things that go, throughout the season. That's going to happen. But for the generally, when you listen to these guys talk about their team and everything, they enjoy being on this team together. And you think about some of these players. I mean, Dean Wade is in his 6th season right now with the team. I think it's number 6. Darius Garland, I think he's up there. So these guys have played together. And Donovan Mitchell now, this is his 3rd season, right, with the Cavs. The Cavs have made it to the playoffs. They lost to the Knicks in that one series a year ago. Then 2 years ago, and then last year they beat New Orleans, or not New Orleans. They beat Orlando, then lost to Boston. So they're making progress, but they weren't going to go beyond that point. I already talked about JB Bickerstaff. I don't want to waste my time. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. See if the Cavs can continue their momentum. They're going to lose some more games. It's that part of the season, the end of January, February. You start getting the March, April, and then May kicks in, and that's when the playoffs start. And that's obviously that's really where your energy needs to go. So, folks, I hope you enjoy tuning in here to the Johnny Cleveland podcast this afternoon. I know that Philly is playing the Rams. I don't know what the score is at the time, but earlier on, I think the Eagles had a small lead. But hope you have a really great week. It's my wife's birthday this week, so we've been starting to celebrate that. So shout out to my beautiful wife, Laura, and hope she has a great birthday coming up here in the next few days. Let's see what else. That's it. That's all I got. I don't have anything else. I'm drained. I'm out of energy. That's Cleveland in the background. Beautiful city of Cleveland, the city that we love dearly. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Remember to keep smiling. Thank you.